Thank you, Erica. Figured this was ideal because you would be able to see ProtoSpace through the windows. Take advantage of these brand new booths that were designed just for this very purpose. Although I'm noticing the table is a little angled down. It's not very strong, and it's throwing off the angle of the camera. Look at that. But other than that, we'll maybe put a little powder pad in here so that people can get rid of the shine. There we go. I just need a parasol. I can't hear anyone else. I just want to make sure that my volume is good. TJ, would you
Yeah,
talk?
yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Yeah, both sounding good.
Thank you.
We've got 19 here. That might be our number. We could wait another minute and see.
Oh, are we sort of conducting this on our own? No moderator?
Uh, maybe, yeah. Welcome, everyone.
If that's true, I'm happy to start at any time. Give ourselves, and we have 50 minutes. Is that right? Or is it 45 minutes? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, you have 50 minutes. Sorry.
50.
Yeah, they're largely self-run once you're in
Yeah.
the space. We let the people in, we'll handle any technical issues, but that's the
Yeah. Well, maybe we should start then. It's time, right?
Okay. Yeah, let's go.
Okay, I'm going to turn my camera off and bring up my presentation. Your share screen is paused. Why? There. Can you all see ProtoSpace experiential learning? Yes?
Yep. That's
Fantastic.
good.
Great. Let me know if you, I'm just going to pop ahead. Do that. Nope, not letting me. Aha. Great. Good. All right. Well, thank you everyone for attending our session. I am Greg Hatch, and I am the head of the University of Utah Marriott Library's Department of Creativity and Innovation Services. I'm presenting here with my colleague, TJ Farrell, Thomas Farrell. He'll do an introduction in the second half. And this is our presentation, ProtoSpace, Experiential Learning for Everyone. Back in May of 2015, the Marriott Library was under a new dean leadership, and we began an organizational realignment. Prior to that restructuring, I was the head of the Fine Arts and Architecture Library, and I had been discussing with my supervisor an interest in formalizing some partnerships with individual employees throughout the library who were interested in doing technology explorations. We had people involved in media studios, interested in digital storytelling, somebody who was hired to do a GIS visualization project. TJ had independently been looking for 3D printers, and we had been purchasing equipment to support the University of Utah's video game program, the Entertainment Arts and Engineering program. So we merged all of those individual people along with the staff and employees of the Fine Arts and Architecture Library into a new department that we called Creativity and Innovation Services, to not fence ourselves in, very open-ended, and allowed for a lot of flexibility and development over time. So almost simultaneously to that, the library had been approached by the College of Humanities about possibly developing a digital scholarship center inside the library, and the College of Architecture and Planning had approached us about the possibility of building a small-scale fabrication studio inside the library. They didn't have enough room, and they thought that we did. So we began a conversation of how we could incorporate digital humanities, digital fabrication and support the academic needs and interests of the university and the library at the same time. So we began a feasibility study of a physical space that eventually became what you see in front of you here, ProtoSpace. We're getting a little ahead of ourselves. It didn't look like this at all back then, but 2015, the idea was born. So what I want to do now is talk a little bit about our current praxis of how we develop offerings in, oh, that image got broken. I'm so sorry. Um, how we develop our services that we have added into our ProtoSpace programming here. So, and I'm going to use 3D printing as an example. And the photo you're not seeing there is actually of Erica Church, who is one of our attendees here, and another employee, Mikio, who were involved in exploring those 3D printers in the very beginning. So I think that the development of our 3D printing services as our very first full-fledged service gives an example, gives you an idea of the best practices that we have developed over time for a successful deployment and growth of technology-enabled resources in our space. So the first thing that we eventually learned was listening and paying attention and learning from a broad audience. We listened to ourselves, the intrinsic interests of our own team, you know, wanting to try out new resources or services. We listened to the voices of our campus community, the College of Humanities, the College of Architecture and Planning coming to us. We identify potential partners across campus, so possibly from the outside, from the inside of the library to the outside, or maybe even other library organizations such as the Health Sciences Library on campus. And we stay up to date on the current technology trends, emerging technologies, so that we're aware of what's coming down the line and seeing if there is potential fit for an academic library. We like to start small. We pilot the deployments and test out the equipment before going all in. So in the case of 3D printing, one, we had to persist. You must persist. We proposed 3D printing on 3 different occasions in 2011 and 2013. And finally, TJ was successful in getting his proposal for funding accepted in 2014. So we actually had the 3D printer before our team came together. We now know that we want to always, one, buy high quality equipment. We want equipment that is robust, equipment that is error resistant, equipment that has consumable components that are easily acquired, that we don't have to wait for them, and from companies that we believe are going to be in business for a while. You know, a good example of deploying the equipment and not having great success were these 2 images that you see on your screen. We learned that powder printing was challenging. We learned that these machines were finicky. They stopped servicing them after a couple of years. We didn't have the right space for cleanup. It's really necessary to isolate these machines and have, you know, water and solid floors instead of carpeted floors. All of that didn't really work out for us. So, early deployment, small deployment, and learning lessons as you go along. Next, we encourage experimentation. In particular, we don't restrict our staff. We encourage tinkering. We have no agenda. There are no bad ideas for how we're going to use and play with this equipment. We place the equipment out in open, high traffic areas. Or if that's not possible, we throw the doors wide and we invite people in. Really, visibility is the key for early success and encouraging this experimentation. So we start having exploratory consultations as those individuals come in, and we observe how the technology is being used by those individuals. Through that experience, that we then begin developing best practices around the use of that particular piece of technology. So we're now seeking for a proof of concept. As the interest grows, increased demand suggests which components of technology should be built upon. We throw more money, we throw more funding at it to expand and support those technologies that are doing well, or aspects of it. And if the technology is not catching on, in the case of, we had a couple of oversized virtual reality controllers. We revamped them. We tried different approaches to them, and eventually we decommission or we discontinue services. We like to fail early, fail often, and fail forward with our development of proof of concept. But once we have our early success, we like to promote that. We promote it to internally to library administration. Look at the great things that we're doing. Look at what the money that you gave us is making happen for the successful experiences of students and faculty. We like to trumpet our success to external partners. This is how we drive further business. Hey, did you know that a student in architecture did this? Wouldn't it be really great if engineering could also have that sort of success? We also harness student voices themselves. Social media, we encourage them to advertise the activities that they're engaged in, and the library's own social media accounts, documents, and we publish things in blogs about those early successes. And all of this serves towards garnering additional funding to support and build capacity behind that. We also develop expertise within the library. Employees become better equipped at sharing their knowledge. We create asynchronous tools like YouTube tutorials and on-demand trainings. So this is meeting our service ethic here at the library. We also start looking at ways to meet the university's core values, which is integration into the curriculum and applications of these tools into scholarly research, either scholarship about the research tool or the tool is incorporated into scholarship. So all of this long explanation can be reduced into a small little acronym that we use, which is the PAIR approach. We encourage play. We experiment with the technology in an entertaining way. It disarms people into using technology that they may have been fearful about or just didn't understand. It reduces barriers, it increases familiarity, and it cultivates creative applications of the use of the technology. We then move into the educate portion. We seek opportunities to incorporate technology into the curriculum. We align with the core values of education, validating the expenditure of the resources, expenditure of staff time, of capital resources, and physical space being taken up by these things. And then we look for ways to incorporate it into technology, applying that technology, as I said, to the research, or using the technology or researching the applications of the technology. All of this further validates the expenses and the time and the spaces, and the research itself then feeds back into the university's grand purpose of higher education. So as I alluded to before, 3D printing and scanning were really our first test into or developed resource for what eventually became ProtoSpace. But I want to also use it as an example of how we developed our philosophy of open access versus mediated access to this equipment. Originally, our 3D printers were housed behind doors and always required staff intervention, which means it was only available to people Monday through Friday, maybe 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eventually, we learned that the equipment could be used, and we made it available. We flipped this to the other side of the room into an open space. The enclosures there are more for noise, not for protecting the machines themselves. We allowed people to start using them, and we knew that we had secured funding to be able to repair and replace parts on these machines. So now you see the 3D printers out in the public space, encouraging people to walk up and use the machines whenever the library is open. We were developing protocols for training people on how to use these machines. We had staff who were dedicated to assisting the students. And as I said before, we had the financial support now for repairing and replacing parts on these. This is a contemporary photo taken, I think, maybe yesterday of our current deployment in ProtoSpace of the 3D printers, multiple versions of 3D printers that are available for walk-up. Whenever the library is open, somebody can have unmediated access and engage in hands-on learning. We do, however, in this particular case, still have a staff only space, and this is critical for us. This is our 3D printing farm. Students, faculty, staff, anyone with a university affiliation can submit a 3D print job online, but this farm is set up for high turnover of print jobs. It's for efficiency, and it is the revenue stream for replacing a lot of the parts and equipment that you see throughout ProtoSpace. So this is the core of ProtoSpace's existence right here. So we've done this with lots of other services. ProtoSpace involves media production. It's data visualization services. We have soft goods and sewing machine area. We have a materials collection. And we also have a virtual reality set of systems. So I want to talk you through same sort of deployment, same sort of process. When we started with VR, we were unsure about the safety concerns, the individuals hurting themselves or possibly interacting with a passerby and not knowing that that individual was there. Once we learned more about the equipment, we then started allowing for unmediated access. We developed virtual reality kits that students could check out and take to other parts of the library or to their classroom or even to their homes. We started integrating this technology into curriculum. Here's a photo of, I think it was a geography class in the Fine Arts and Architecture Library, utilizing the equipment, and we're starting to see what the potential is for integration into curriculum. And then we start establishing spaces that students and faculty and staff can access at any time whenever the library is open. This equipment is just sitting out and available for them to use. So along those lines, libraries have long been academic libraries have long provided access to things that are for occasional use, meant to be shared, sometimes expensive or unique, like, books and special collections and music collections. They've also been a place for patrons to access expensive cutting-edge technology since the late 20th century. Remember VCRs? First place you could get those in elementary schools and academic libraries were in the libraries of those places, like VCRs and computers and databases. But we have now, with makerspaces, added into the mix materials that are potentially dangerous, inconvenient to own, require a steep learning curve. They're messy and they're fragile and easy to break. And all of this is now in the mix of how libraries are offering resources to patrons. But it is a way of saying that this egalitarian access and autonomy of use has long been a library service philosophy, and we're just extending that model now into ProtoSpace. For us in particular, it's reflected in our physical space generally. ProtoSpace is 25,000 feet of an open floor plan, as you can see there. There is a classroom suite that has a data visualization wall and doors, but that is more about sound reduction and the classroom furnishings that are in there than it is about the equipment itself. This open access philosophy is reflected in the equipment. It's walk-up, it's hands-on, it's unmediated. We don't have special privileges for people who have a particular status or major. Although I will say the technology that requires a login does require a University of Utah login. So the public can use the things that don't require that login. And it's reflected also in the patrons' use of the resources. We don't have rules. We don't list do's and don'ts for how to use the equipment. We offer asynchronous and autonomous tutorials, those YouTube videos that I was talking about, so people can get up and started on complex tasks on their own. I'm going to skip over that part there because I'm running out of time. So I want to talk a little bit about then the risks and rewards of this service model for us. Because we are generally unmediated, we're not able to collect as much data, at least not precise data, about our users and about their activities. There's a low barrier entry, but that also means that there's a greater likelihood that the equipment might get damaged or stolen. However, it has been our experience that things don't get broken and stolen very often. It's really been a wonderful discovery there. It feels chaotic. That is true. It's loud. It's messy, but that also means that it's vibrant and inspirational. The reward is that people using these spaces oftentimes teach us about how the equipment can be used in ways that we had never imagined. And lastly, to make all of this work, our student employees are critical. All of our employees, full-time and part-time, are primed for making ProtoSpace a success. We hire them for their skills, yes, but we also hire them for their aptitude. What can they achieve over time? Do they have an inquisitive spirit? And are they a personable individual, somebody who is going to enjoy having a conversation with the users who come into our space? Our employees are actively encouraged to welcome the visitors, to initiate conversations with them, to ask them about their projects, and to always offer the opportunity to ask me anything. Employees are allowed to and encouraged to collaborate with the patrons and with one another. They can initiate new projects, and a lot of things that come out of ProtoSpace now are initiatives that come from our employees. So I'm going to end my portion right there and turn it over to TJ.
Thank you so much. I am really enjoying the conversation already, so I think that this session will be good for all of us. So yeah, my name is Thomas James Farrell. I go by TJ, and it's definitely been a joy to help sort all of this stuff out. So I'm an assistant head of creativity and innovation services, and I'm kind of the tinkerer. Although we are all involved in tinkering, but I do love to tinker. Um, I started out managing the library's computer lab help desks, and a lot of the students would come and say, how do I do X, Y, or Z? Oftentimes it was 3D scanning, 3D modeling, 3D printing. None of us had any experience with these things until we just said, we'll buy a piece of equipment, turn it on, kick the tires, see how it works. Usually, we were our earliest 3D printers were quite expensive, but of course, around 2013, 2014, a lot of patents expired, which allowed us to buy open source technology, which we really love. And so we built out a lot of these services as a let's try it and see. And of course, the response was then, how do I incorporate this into my class? How do I incorporate this into my research? How do I do an assignment with this? And I just had the philosophy of like, instead of saying, no, we don't do that, or I don't know, it's, I'm not sure how to do that, but I want to figure it out just as much as you do. And so much of that, just comes from my own experience of campus and the library as a place where I could come and explore and be comfortable, and it's a egalitarian environment, and I felt like I wanted to contribute to that. So I just have a habit of trying. I like to be the last. I like for my service points to be the last location where somebody has to come to get support for something. Which obviously there's clear handoffs, but in the case of a lot of these emerging technologies, people are asking questions that don't have answers, right? And so what we're doing is, an initial consultation is a pre-curriculum, pre-research. A lot of times it's, pre-market. Like people come with a notion, a sense of what they want to do. They might have a direction. They might not know where the next next steps are. And we try, anymore we have enough experience that we can pretty clearly say, but in the early iterations of these services, we did not know what curricular adoption looked like. And so some of it, we did rely on just like, we're just going to put this out here. We're going to put these 3D printers out here and we're going to see what happens. And that's where, yeah, students immediately come to the desk and say, well, the printers are busy. How do I interact with it? How do I get in the queue? And so that led us to kind of move into those spaces. Of course, we also had the faculty that would come and say, it's great that you have 3D scanners. It's great that you have 3D printers. It's great that you have VR stuff. I'm very interested in that. I want to use it in my teaching or in my research. And I want to know how to do that. And so that, some of the earliest collaborators were through the School of Dentistry. So if we can pull up that next slide, we'll see just a couple of different interactions. So the School of Dentistry approached us. It was actually the surgeon in the bottom right image. He's the middle fella there. So that's my good friend, Mark Durham. And he was just interested in how we, how can we use this technology to innovate in dental education? And of course, we said, we don't know, but it might be through creating simulations that allow students to, do a procedure in a virtual setting before moving to, generally they do a virtual simulation, then they'll do a lab simulation, and then of course move to patient work. The goal here was really just to bring down the cost of the lab simulations, right? Doing tooth prep, crown tooth drilling is a skill that takes a lot of practice to build. And so, at $200 a pop, $200 for a simulated tooth over the course of a student's career, we really were just looking for ways to kind of bring down costs there. We also did a lesson there. At the bottom left image is actually the dean of the School of Dentistry. He is the world's leading caries tooth decay expert, and he teaches a lot of 3D concepts in a 2D space. And so using virtual reality, he was able to use a very common now open source software called Tilt Brush to actually sculpt the growth of tooth enamel in front of a live class as a demonstration. That was quite well received, and we've had a number of this kind of spun into a whole lot of support. And of course, we could spend more time talking about, well, how do we support these things? How do we sustain these things? And so many times I'll just share. A lot of times it's, the department wants to do something. We can say, here's what's possible and here's what it will take. And so there's a little bit of a back and forth of, we can help you do this, but of course, the staffing, like we need to see to how to build these simulations, because of course the student employee there at the bottom right, he's in all three of these images. We just happen to be able to connect the pieces there, which I will share. A lot of what we do is just the connecting. So moving on from dentistry, I am aware that there's different levels of support for different types of curricular adoption. So when we think about like the College of Engineering, we've had probably dozens and dozens of courses now that have used our services in some way. A lot of times in the early days, the engineering students knew that they had to fabricate parts. They had 3D printers in the department. They still have 3D printers in the department, but they were not as accessible. So just creating access to these services is something that really did draw a lot of people to us. So our hours, were open. In those days, I think it was 7 a.m. to 1 a.m. and the printers were just out and available. Now, us not being the experts, we kind of created a path. We said, here's how to use this thing. And so people would come in and they'd see our instructions. And a lot of these students already had experience with the equipment. And so they would disregard the instructions and print using what they were familiar with. And from that, we learned a lot. So that, there's kind of a back and forth that happens there. And so curricular adoption was actually kind of informal and a little bit random at first, where students needed to CNC a part or 3D print a part, and they just came to us to access these printers. Of course, that then adds complications and competition to the resource and helps us figure out, like, where do we need to grow? How do we need to constrain this? So thinking through like safety of materials and things like that, we definitely had to do a whole bunch of research and work with our environmental health and safety teams. We do regular airflow assessments and lab inspections. We prescribe what materials can be printed with. Pending facilities upgrades, we'd love to move into different types of materials and things like that, but it's just not meant to be at this point. So once we get the proper facilities in place, we can do that. But thinking through the different the different versions of curricular support, for the engineering courses, it was at first the thing exists, so the students use it. Then we figure out, well, who are the students working under, what classes are they taking, and we work with the faculty there. So we would go and do class visits and get to say to all the students, here's what we have, here's how you may use it, and then here's how to reach us. Other classes, there's other disciplines where the students don't have a pre-training familiarity with these things. So for the engineering folks, putting out the 3D scanners. So at the bottom right, you can see our Next Engine 3D scanner. This is a copper plate. So there's copper material deposited onto a plate that's submerged in a liquid, and the copper deposits on the surface there. And then they try to measure how much copper has deposited on the surface of that plate. That's another situation where we just create the access to the material, to the scanners. As a quick digression, our scanners are also just walk-ups. So anyone can walk into the lab. There's no door on the lab. The scanners, I have put like security cables on them so they can't walk off. They are super expensive. But how great is it for our community that anyone can come in and lay hands on a very expensive piece of equipment with, as little training as, here's the manual, right? The manual is sitting on the desk. A lot of people are really just prepared to just sit down, read the manual, hold the scanner. Of course, we also teach, we do consultations with people and sit down and show them how to do it. And we also do course, we'll bring a whole class of people in, sit them around. I'll show one person, I'll have that person then take the reins and show the next person. So lots of different levels of kind of course integration. So let's move to the next slide here, just to hopefully get through all of these. So because it's such an open-ended set of technology, we don't say this is for the engineers, it's for the architects. It's just that they come to us knowing that this equipment's available, and we then learn from them, and then we know what's possible. So when the arts and the dance and the theater folks, which is coming up next, when they come in, we don't have to kind of help them invent a process. We can suppose we understand the gist of what they want to do, and then we can say, here's how I might go about this, and then engage in some quick tutorials with them. So in this case, some of our earliest adoptions were architecture and design. So using the powder printer to create building massings, to do like city planning and things like that. I will say working with architecture courses has been particularly difficult because the types of modeling that architects do is for rendering and for what do they call the MEP, the mechanical engineering plans of a building are very different from what you would use to 3D print. And so in this case, we actually, the course integration is communicating with the students. You might submit a model in Revit or what's a rhinoceros or SketchUp to your professor as an assignment, but you can't just throw that at a 3D printer and expect it to work. So I won't say we've struggled. We've enjoyed learning about all the ways that people can make really unprintable models that render beautifully. In other cases, sometimes course integration is really just a kind of dropping a new technology on top of an existing workflow. So a lot of the Autodesk suite have VR plugins, and all we do is, we build the VR lab, we make sure the software is installed, the students import their assets, and they're able to experience and share and show people what they've made and how they've created things. So yeah, the other one with design is there's a whole lot of interesting combinations of 3D scanning and creating new things from 3D scans. So we end up working a lot with the multidisciplinary design teams that do product design, just to 3D scan and make. They do kit bashing, they call it, where they'll scan 3 objects and then combine them into some strange homunculus and make new objects. And it's always very interesting to see what they come up with. But over time, we've gotten more and more practice at teaching large groups. Here's how to 3D scan something, and that has evolved from putting the equipment out and waiting for people to come and learn how to use it. In the early days of our design work, working with design faculty, the faculty would say, go to the library and use the 3D scanner. And so I would get 15 students contacting me separately to all say, hey, I want to use your 3D scanner. And it only takes one semester of that for me to then contact the professor and say, instead of all of them coming at me individually, like, let's just scan one session, or let's schedule one session. We'll teach everyone to use this, and we'll go from there. I do want to also chime in about this, the marketing and promotional components. But let's round out with art, dance, and theater. So the one example here, I mean, so there's a lot of courses that come, like, in terms of art, like the digital drawing is a really common. We teach digital drawing in virtual reality pretty much every semester, and have them come in more and more. That's like one intro session, teaching the students, how to launch Steam VR, how to log into their Steam accounts, which software to use. Some of it is just keeping up with the latest and greatest. So like the Quest 3 headsets have full color pass through. There's a multiplayer version of Tilt Brush called Multibrush that has pass through, so you can actually bring 5 or 6 people into a virtual environment where they see the room, but they also see the thing that they're sculpting. And it's fantastic to have people try this out for the first time. A lot of components here involve 3D scanning. So the right image here was a dance faculty member that just came in one day. Like, I was sitting at the help desk, and this individual came in and said, I want to 3D scan my dancers for some costume design components. And so, basically my response is, I'm ready to help you do this. Do you have half an hour to just run through it? And so in that half an hour, we teach 3D scanning, which has gotten so much easier with the little LiDAR scanner on iOS devices. So, after the 12 Pro, I think, every Pro iOS device after that has a little LiDAR scanner. And I encourage people to use a free piece of software. It's called Scaniverse. I'm just going to type the name of that. I mistyped it, so I'm going to try again. Scaniverse is the software that we use to scan this individual. I taught her to scan, and then she took an iPad that we circulate. We check out iPads. It's free software. So like I said, so much of it's just connecting the dots there. And then she was able to turn those scans into these little replicas, and she used them in her coursework, and then also gave each of the students a little gift of a printed version of themselves. So yeah, these are becoming more commonplace. I really think of my job sometimes as like figuring out in the dark what's the use case, what's the minimum kind of path to success, and then how can I get out of the way, right? I don't want to be like the arbiter, the gatekeeper. I want to take the doors off of stuff. And so, with all of this technology, the goal is how can we make it accessible, and then figuring out like all of these, how does it go wrong? How do they break? And of course, we know a lot of those things now too. So with 3D scanning, I will say things don't break. It's just a matter of the staff all need to be really comfortable. Like no one has an innate sense of how to 3D scan, but as you do it, you become more comfortable with it. And so um, teaching teaching quickly and teaching often um, is the answer there. So before I shut up and answer some more questions, or hear some more questions, I do want to mention just briefly the outreach component. So I actually served as the outreach coordinator for the library. I think from 20. Well, I started working with the outreach coordinator in 2015, just going to all the campus events, all the tabling things, and then I took over that role in 2018 and did it for 2 years, and then a couple more into the pandemic where things were very different. But a lot of these resources, they're kind of the flashy thing that you put on, you put it on the table and everybody's like, ooh, like that's something I haven't seen before. And so we really did use that as sort of bait just to get people to come and interact with our, come into the building. Like I don't care why you come into the building. Really they're going to find a comfortable spot to study. They're going to find someone to connect with. And so, the kind of embracing the flashy technology just as a way to get people to think of the library, that's good enough for me. Like I don't care if people come for the services. We're mostly just willing to talk about the services as a way to promote our organization. So hopefully that helps. But it did fall onto our department to do outreach for the organization for several years. And there's a long history of working with our development team. I've done a fair bit of travel, just kind of sharing what we're doing because we started early and kind of went hard. We were one of the first universities to have publicly available 3D printers, and the VR stuff has always been tricky to figure out. But we look at it and we say, yeah, this is going to be hard, and then we answer the question of like, well, how will it be hard? So, okay, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to share all this.
I think we're open to a few more questions. We still have 5 more minutes. I think we've done a fairly good job of responding to the chat, and that's what TJ was just sort of commenting on there. But if you had a question in chat that wasn't addressed, or you want to just ask it, feel free. Now is your opportunity. Anyone?
I'm just looking through. We did have an SLA printer. The resin is really, it's just, it's so toxic. Of course, when we first started 3D printing, we didn't really think about like, is ABS bad for me? And over time, as we learned more, we just stopped doing the things that were dangerous. SLA printing is still kind of in that mix. We'd like to get back there. We need tile floors. We need sinks and safety equipment, and we do need to be able to mediate access to these things. We're not going to leave dangerous resins in an open space where people can come and spill things and make dangerous situations. I'm also really interested in the Fuse One is a nylon printer by Formlabs. So it's back to the powder printing solution. I guess it's SLS printing, but yeah, or binder jet printing or whatever you call it. But yeah, we'd like to expand. It's just a matter of what can we put in the space that's going to be moderately successful. No CNC machine. Well, I mean, technically 3D printers are sort of CNCs. Oh, that's interesting. Thanks, Jonathan. I am interested in desktop mills. It'd be cool to have a PCB mill. Um, there's I definitely don't want to get into. I guess where CNC where I find an interest in CNC is where it's kind of more on the digital side of things, and kind of doesn't have a huge barrier to entry. So safety does create a barrier to entry that we'll probably continue to find challenging with CNC machines, but ultimately I do have those on our wish list.
So I want to chime in and say, while the vision for this started in 2015, the actual space that we're in, we really it it opened up and became just this barren landscape in late fall 2019. And then COVID hit, and we didn't get a chance to really do anything with it. And so we just imagined what it would be for about a year and a half until we all came back in the fall of 2021. So we really have only been here for about 3 years, and we have grown substantially in the amount of equipment that we have put out there to fill the footprint more than we did originally. But what we don't have is funding to build an enclosure. The Marriott Library is undergoing its first space analysis since like 2002 or three. So first time in 20 years. And we have high hopes that one, there will be a directive that ProtoSpace needs more money thrown at it to build out the facilities. But I want to and that would then allow us to have maybe an enclosed space with, negative airflow to take out the fumes, and we would be able to seal off the doors so that we could have routers and that sort of thing that are going to generate a lot of dust that aren't going to be good for all of the other things in a library, like books and computers, and humans. But when we get done with all of this, whatever space we end up in, whether it's this space or somewhere else, I think we want to keep the open floor plan as a major component of it, because it has allowed us to envision and deploy equipment in ways that we hadn't thought of. When we had that feasibility study back in 2015, we didn't have a VR arena. We didn't have our data visualization wall, though we did imagine like an arts exhibition area. We didn't have the soft goods. We didn't have the sewing machines and all of those things. So I think we would be fenced in if we built a space that had too many walls and specialized areas. So. We got a gentle reminder that a 5-minute warning a few minutes ago, so I think we should wrap it up. I'll say thank you to everyone for stopping and engaging with us. Feel free to reach out to either one of us. There's our email addresses on the screen, and if you scan that QR code, it'll take you to the ProtoSpace homepage, where you'll be able to learn a little more about all of the various resources that we didn't talk about today. That are deployed here. So thank you all so much.
Thanks, everyone. Really great conversation.